The knock came during dinner. Not a polite one. Not the type neighbors do when they borrow sugar or complain about your trash can being in the wrong spot. No, this one was sharp. Fast. Like someone wanted to punch through the door. Raylene didn't flinch. Milo paused mid-bite. Talia lowered her fork. I wiped my mouth and got up. I didn't know that opening the door would erase 17 years of my life in less than 5 minutes. A woman stood there. Thin. Nervous. Her eyes darted behind me into the house, scanning the dinner table like she had a mission. I didn't recognize her, not at first. But she looked at me like I should. "I'm sorry," she said, voice trembling. "I know this is going to sound insane, but your son is mine." I blinked. "Excuse me." She opened a manila folder and held up 2 papers. Not just papers. Lab results. DNA test results. I know what they look like. I've seen them before on talk shows and trashy TV. I never thought one would show up on my doorstep. "It's not a scam," she continued. "He's not your biological son. He's mine. I gave birth to him 14 years ago. I've been searching since the hospital mixed them up. I think we found the match." Everything went silent inside the house. I turned. Raylene was standing now, pale as snow. Milo was frozen in his chair, staring at me. At her. At all of it. "No," Raylene muttered. "That's not possible. That's not." But the woman pulled out another document. An old hospital form. A photo. A newborn wristband. A nurse's name. Talia stood up too. "Mom, what is this?" I didn't wait for an answer. I didn't scream. I didn't tear the papers in half. I just walked. Down the steps. Past the mailbox. No jacket. No plan. Just raw, stupid air. They didn't follow. Because the moment I left, I think they knew something I didn't. That this was just the beginning. And the things they'd kept from me? The ones I was too stupid or too in love to notice. They were about to surface. And this time, I wasn't going to be the one holding everything together. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I just kept walking around town like some glitching NPC, wandering in and out of gas stations and dark parking lots, trying to convince myself I was still real, that my family was still real, that my entire life hadn't just been unplugged by a knock at the door. The woman never gave me her name, just dropped the truth like a bomb and disappeared. And Raylene, she never called. Not once. No apology. No explanation. Just radio silence like she was waiting for the chaos to settle on its own. By the next morning, I dragged myself back to the house, not because I forgave anyone, but because I needed answers. Hard ones. Ones she couldn't dodge behind wine glasses or birthday cakes, or "let's talk about this later" lines. I walked straight into the kitchen like a ghost returning to the crime scene. She was at the sink, sipping coffee like it was just another Tuesday. No tears. No guilt. Just that cold blank expression she wears when she's trying to pretend nothing's wrong. "Tell me the truth, Ray," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Who is Milo?" She didn't look at me, just stirred her coffee like she was mixing lies into the cream. "He's your son in every way that counts." "That's not what I asked." She finally turned, setting the mug down with a quiet clink. "I had doubts when I gave birth. I knew something was off. He didn't have my nose, didn't have your chin. But the hospital swore it was our baby, and after a while, I just stopped asking questions." I narrowed my eyes. "You stopped asking because you didn't want to know. You chose to pretend." She didn't deny it. "And Talia?" I asked, my stomach tightening. "She's yours," she said quickly, too quickly. "That one I'm sure of." That one. Like our daughter was a random item on a receipt? My throat tightened. "So what was the plan, Raylene?" I said. "Let me raise a child who might not be mine. Then pretend everything's normal? Until some stranger shows up and rips the blindfold off?" "It wasn't supposed to happen this way," she whispered. "No," I snapped. "It was supposed to never come out." "That's what you mean, isn't it?" She turned away, shaking. Whether from anger or guilt, I couldn't tell. But in that moment, I realized I didn't know her at all. Not the woman I married. Not the mother of the kids I thought were mine. Just a carefully curated character I'd been sleeping beside for 17 years. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. But instead, I just walked again. Out the front door. Like I was cursed to keep repeating it. But this time, I didn't go to a motel or some diner at the edge of town. I went to the hospital. The one where Milo had been born. And what I found in their archive room. The forgotten files, the nurse logs, the birth records no one had ever bothered to question, proved one thing without a doubt. Raylene had been lying to me for longer than I imagined. And she wasn't the only one. The woman at the hospital's front desk looked at me like I was crazy the moment I asked about a 14-year-old baby mix-up. She gave me that tight, professional smile people use when they want you to leave. "I don't think we keep birth records that far back in-house," she said, tapping her keyboard without even checking. "You'd have to request copies through Central Archives. There's a process." I leaned on the counter, bags under my eyes, voice cracking. "I just need to know if a baby named Milo Castell had any incident report filed. Anything weird. Switched ID bands, wrong crib, a nurse on disciplinary leave, anything." She sighed. "Sir, even if I could find that, HIPAA. I'm the legal father. My name's on the birth certificate. Just check," I begged. She looked at me for a moment, and maybe it was the sheer desperation in my eyes, or maybe she'd seen cases like this before. Without another word, she stood up and walked to the back. I stood there, numb, staring at the lobby wall, wondering how many other dads were living someone else's story and didn't even know it. 10 minutes passed. Then she returned with a thin folder, yellowed at the edges. She didn't hand it to me, just opened it behind the glass. "There was an incident," she said quietly. "According to this, 2 infant boys were temporarily placed in the wrong bassinets for just under 2 hours before discharge. It was caught by a nurse during routine rounds and immediately corrected. No formal incident report filed, just a side note by the floor supervisor. The families were never notified because, well, officially, no harm was done." I stared at her. My whole body froze. "Do the names match?" She hesitated. "Your son's ID band was labeled Baby Boy Carson. The other one, your biological child, was discharged to the woman who gave birth the next bed over. Her last name was Weatherby." I said nothing, because I recognized the name. Weatherby was the name on the papers the woman had shown me at the door. I hadn't paid much attention in the moment, but now it punched me in the chest. My actual son was out there, raised by strangers, and the boy I raised, who I loved, had never been mine at all. I walked out of the hospital in a fog, folder in hand, my name printed neatly beside a life I'd never gotten to live. When I got back to the house that night, I didn't go inside. I stood across the street, watching the windows glow as if nothing had happened. Milo was in his room, probably gaming. Talia was probably texting her friends about the school dance. And Raylene was probably on the couch, scrolling through her phone, wondering if I'd come back like I always did. But this time I didn't. Because inside that folder was one more thing. A handwritten note from the nurse who caught the mix-up. It said, "Unusual incident. Boys looked very similar. Family of baby boy Carson refused to double-check. Seemed eager to leave." Eager to leave? Or eager to hide something? That's when a sick possibility crept in, one I hadn't considered. What if Raylene had known all along? What if she had chosen the wrong child on purpose? I couldn't sleep again. Not because of the hospital files, or the woman on the porch, or even what the nurse had written. What haunted me was the idea that Raylene might have chosen the lie. That she saw the 2 babies side by side, and picked the one who made things easier. Maybe it was selfishness. Maybe fear. But the possibility that she looked at both boys, one hers and one not, and willingly took home someone else's child, it broke something in me. The next day, I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more than speculation. I needed evidence. Something solid that even she couldn't twist with one of her perfect, rehearsed explanations. So I waited until she left the house for work. She took her sweet time getting ready, too. Like she was still pretending life was normal. Still applying her eyeliner in the mirror while her whole world teetered on a lie. The moment her car pulled out of the driveway, I went in through the back door. I didn't feel like a husband anymore. I felt like a ghost. And ghosts don't knock. I went straight to her closet, to the top shelf where she kept her old jewelry boxes and sentimental stuff she never wanted me touching. I opened one. Just earrings. Another, photos of the kids when they were babies. I paused. My hands were shaking, but I kept digging. Then I found it. A folded envelope, old and creased like it had been read too many times. My name wasn't on it. No one's was. Just a hospital logo in the corner and a date, the week after Milo was born. Inside was a letter. Not from a doctor. Not from the hospital. From a private lab. I read it 3 times before I understood what I was holding. Raylene had ordered a DNA test 14 years ago. The results were clear. Milo wasn't biologically related to her. Or to me. She had known. Since the beginning. and she had said nothing. My chest felt like it was collapsing in on itself. I stumbled backward onto the bed, clutching the paper like it was on fire. All this time, she looked me in the eye. She let me bond with him. Let me raise him. She watched me celebrate birthdays and teach him how to throw a baseball and cry when he called me dad. All while knowing the truth. She didn't make a mistake. She made a decision. But the part that shattered me completely, the part that made me sick to my stomach, was what she'd scribbled at the bottom of the test results in faded blue ink. He'll never know. And I'll never tell him. This is safer for everyone. Safer. Like the truth was a disease she had to quarantine. Like I was too weak to handle it. I sat there in that room, the one we shared, the one where I used to hold her after long nights, and I realized I had no idea who the woman beside me all these years actually was. But now I knew what I had to do. Not just for me, but for Milo. Because the kid I raised deserved to know the truth, even if it destroyed everything. I waited until Sunday. I don't know why. Maybe part of me hoped I'd cool off by then. Think clearer, maybe find some gentler way to do this. But the truth sat in my chest like a ticking time bomb, and every hour I waited made the guilt worse. Not hers. Mine. Because if Milo found out some other way, like I did, that would break him. And no matter how angry I was at Raylene, I still cared about that boy. He wasn't just somebody else's kid to me. He was my son, even if biology said otherwise. So Sunday morning came, and I didn't bother making pancakes like I usually did. No music. No orange juice. Just silence and dread. Milo was in his room, headphones on, blasting whatever obnoxious EDM he was into that week. I stood outside his door for what felt like an hour before I knocked. He opened it, confused. "You okay?" he asked. "You look like you didn't sleep." "I didn't," I said. "Can we talk? Downstairs?" He shrugged, followed me down like it was just another awkward dad talk about grades or dishes. I sat him on the couch. He could tell something was off. Probably from the way I kept fidgeting with my hands or the fact that I couldn't look him in the eye. I didn't know how to begin, so I just said it. "There's something I need to tell you, and I need you to let me finish before you say anything." He nodded slowly. "I love you, Milo. That's never going to change. You are my son in every way that's ever mattered. But I found something out. Something your mom kept from both of us." His posture changed immediately. Guarded. Suspicious. I swallowed hard. "You were switched at birth." He blinked. "What?" "You were accidentally placed in the wrong bassinet. The hospital made a mistake, and your mom found out years ago. She had a DNA test done. She kept it secret. I only found out because a woman showed up at our door last week. She's your biological mother." I handed him the test results. The letter. Her handwriting. He stared at them for a long time. Too long. I kept talking just to fill the silence. "I know this is insane. I know it's unfair. I didn't want to tell you like this, but I couldn't lie to you either. I thought you should hear it from me. You deserve that." Still, no reaction. Just him, sitting there, jaw locked, eyes scanning the paper again and again like the words would change if he just looked hard enough. Then he asked, quietly, "Does that mean you're not my dad?" That's when my voice cracked. "I don't care what the papers say. I'm your dad. I always have been." He nodded. Once. Then stood up and walked upstairs without another word. I didn't follow. I couldn't. I just sat there in the living room, surrounded by pieces of a life that was no longer real. And behind the silence, I could hear Raylene's car pull into the driveway. She was home, and now the storm was just beginning. She walked through the front door humming. Actually humming. Like she had just come back from brunch with friends, or a yoga session, or whatever peaceful fantasy she had constructed to escape what she knew was waiting for her. She stopped cold the moment she saw me sitting on the couch. I wasn't doing anything, just holding the envelope. The one with her handwriting. I made sure she saw it. Her smile vanished. "You found it," she said after a long pause, setting her purse down slowly, like she was trying not to startle a bear. I didn't answer. I just stared at her. The longer I stayed quiet, the more uncomfortable she got. "Good. You weren't supposed to see that," she added. "It wasn't. I didn't mean to." "To what?" I finally said. My voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. "Lie? For 14 years?" She took a shaky breath, stepping toward me like she still had the right. "I was scared, Dorian. When I got those results, I didn't know how to tell you. I thought, no, don't you dare pretend this was about protecting me." She froze. "You knew," I said, rising from the couch. "You knew he wasn't ours." You knew there was another boy out there, our actual son, and you just decided to keep it buried. I was trying to protect him, she insisted. Milo, I couldn't tear him away from the only life he'd known. You didn't protect him, I snapped. You stole his right to know who he is. And you stole mine, my right to choose. You made that decision for both of us. She opened her mouth like she had more lies ready, but I wasn't done. You wrote it down, railing. You said you'd never tell him. You decided to fake a life and just live it, like I was too stupid to ever find out. Then she crumbled. Finally, her voice cracked, and her eyes welled up as she whispered, he wasn't the only one. Silence. What? She looked down. Wouldn't meet my eyes. Talia, she said, her voice barely audible. I didn't lie about her being yours. But I also didn't tell you that during our separation, I slept with someone else. Right around the same time I got pregnant. I couldn't breathe. But I was sure she was yours, she added quickly. We got the test, remember? But I made sure we only checked my DNA, not yours. I didn't want to risk it. I couldn't. So not only had she lied about Milo's entire existence, she had gambled with Talia too? I couldn't even process it. My legs gave out, and I sank back onto the couch, feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room. My heart wasn't just breaking anymore. It was splitting at the seams. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the only thing left to do. She reached for me, but I flinched away. Don't, I whispered. I don't even know who you are. And the worst part? She didn't fight that. She just stood there, crying, as if she'd finally seen the rubble of the life she'd spent years building on lies. But she still hadn't seen what was coming next, because someone else was about to knock on our door. And this time, it wouldn't be a stranger. The knock came in the middle of her breakdown. She was still standing in the living room, wiping tears off her face with the back of her trembling hand, when we both froze at the sound. 3 knocks. Slow. Heavy. Not urgent, but deliberate. Raylene turned toward the door like she expected me to answer it. I didn't move. I just stared at her. So she walked to the door herself, barefoot, broken, barely holding it together. When she opened it, her breath caught in her throat. Standing there was a teenage boy, same age as Milo. His hair was darker, straighter. He had this seriousness in his face, not angry, just observant, like he'd already studied this moment before it happened. Behind him was the woman from earlier, the one who had shown up with the DNA results. His biological mother. Hi, the boy said quietly. I'm Elijah. Raylene's knees buckled. She gripped the doorframe to stay upright. He stepped inside slowly, cautiously, like he wasn't sure what he was walking into. His mother stayed outside on the porch, letting him do this on his own. Brave kid. I rose from the couch, heart pounding, hands cold. I looked at him and I knew. There was no test needed. His eyes were mine. The way his jaw tightened, the way he stood, it was like looking at a version of myself I never got to raise. Raylene couldn't speak. She backed away from him like she'd seen a ghost. I just wanted to meet you, Elijah said to me, not her. I've been asking questions for years, but no one wanted to tell me anything. Until recently. I don't understand, Raylene finally stammered. Why now? Elijah looked at her, and his voice was calm but clear. Because you had your chance. 14 years ago. But you chose not to say anything. You didn't even look for me. My mom did all the work. And when she knocked, you still lied. Raylene collapsed onto the stairs, hands over her face. No words. Just shame. Elijah turned to me. I'm not here to ruin anything. I just needed to see where I came from. And to say thank you. For what? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. For raising Milo, he said. Even if it wasn't your job. Even if it wasn't fair. You still did it. I swallowed hard. Then he did something I didn't expect. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a letter, a folded-up piece of paper with handwriting on the front. From my mom, he said. She wanted you to have this. I opened it with shaking hands. It wasn't long. Just a thank you. And something else. She had included a photo. A hospital photo. 2 newborns lying in adjacent bassinets. One labeled Carson. One labeled Weatherby. The nurse's handwritten note was barely legible, but it said, corrected, but no parental review requested. Discharge cleared under pressure from mother. From Raylene. My breath caught. Elijah noticed. She knew. I said, more to myself than to him. She pressured them to discharge early. She rushed it. And just like that, all doubt was gone. It wasn't an accident. Not really. She had seen both babies. She had known something wasn't right, and she pushed through it anyway. Raylene was still curled on the stairs, not defending herself, not denying a thing, because now there was nothing left to say. But I wasn't finished yet. Not with her. Not with this house. Not with the life I was about to leave behind. I didn't say goodbye. Not to Raylene. Not to the house. Not even to the photo frames still hanging crooked on the wall. The ones I used to straighten every Sunday like some silly ritual, thinking I was preserving something worth saving. I left the letter on the kitchen counter. No speech. No dramatic parting words. Just the truth. Printed, folded, final. She could keep the house. Keep the furniture. Keep the empty performance of a life she choreographed without me. The only thing I took was my name. And the two photos. One of Milo in his baseball uniform from when he was 10, and the other of Elijah, standing in our living room that day, holding the truth like it didn't scare him. I got a small apartment near the river. Nothing fancy. One bedroom, creaky floors, and a leaky faucet that sounded like a ticking clock. But it was mine. Mine in a way nothing else had been for a long time. At first, I expected silence. Emptiness. But something happened I never could have predicted. Milo called. The first few conversations were short. Awkward. Tense. He didn't know what to say, and honestly, neither did I. But then he asked if he could come over sometime. Just to hang out. No pressure. No dad talk. We watched dumb action movies and ordered terrible pizza. And for the first time since all of this exploded, I laughed. Really laughed. A week later, he texted again. You still got my old glove? I kinda want to practice again. Then came Elijah. He came by quietly, always respectful, always a little reserved. But he asked questions. About what I was like as a kid. What music I liked. Whether I hated broccoli as much as he did. He didn't want to replace anyone. He just wanted to connect. And I let him. Slowly, we started building something. Not a fantasy. Not a second chance at raising a baby. Just the connection. A real one. No lies. No secrets. Just two people trying to find the pieces that were stolen from them. And then one afternoon, while we were sitting on the balcony, he asked me something I'll never forget. Can I still call you something? Not Dad. I mean, unless you want that. But something? I didn't answer right away. But later, when he left, I found a note he'd written and left on the table. Thank you for not walking away from the part that mattered. You're more than I expected, and more than I thought I deserved. I cried. Yeah, I cried. I'm not ashamed of that anymore. Because in the end, I lost the woman I thought I loved. But I found something better. I found me. I found my sons, both of them, in their own way. And I found out that being a father was never about the DNA. It was about showing up. Even when the lies try to bury you. Even when the truth almost breaks you. You stand back up. And you stay standing.